Hi, good afternoon. I was just actually pleased that I didn't have to follow the robot, Izzy, which was very good. But my job over here, I'm sorry it's doing it over lunch. We were trying to do this an hour earlier. But let me give you a little bit of an introduction about what GK8 is and how actually we support the entire infrastructure of blockchain. So GK8 is an Israeli cybersecurity company. We're providing an infrastructure for banks, financial institutions, in any of the digital asset space, whether it be crypto, tokenization projects, and others, to secure the private keys for custody operations, as well as for day-to-day operations of a solution. We have the largest insurance available in the market. And again, it's an infrastructure that allows our institutions to actually support their own environments. We were recently acquired by Galaxy. Galaxy is one of the leading digital asset companies in the world today. Mike Novogratz is the CEO. That was the end of February. Now, as far as our customer base, we're focused on Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 institutions, exchanges, foundations, companies that are dealing in various different tokenization projects of both traditional assets, equities, commodities, bonds, as well as real-world assets, as in real estate, as in the previous presenter mentioned. Now, the market today, especially over the last year, has gone through a tremendous volatility and a bear market to say. And it incorporated everything from bankruptcies that obviously had an effect, high inflation, regulation issues, as well as, of course, overall crypto hacking events. And that's put a lot of doubt in people's minds when it comes to going live with digital assets. Now, if we look at crypto crime, it's a growing business, and it's all about ROI. As you could see, back in the beginning, 2018, 2017, cybercrime was fairly low. As new assets are coming into play and more value is coming on the blockchain, and the hackers are getting much more sophisticated. Now, GK8's background, as I mentioned, is in the cybersecurity space, at the level of state hackers. We take security as strong as possible. We take no risks as far as that's concerned. And we'll get into the actual overall solution of why it differs from what's out there in the space today. Now, tokenization, obviously people talk about crypto as the biggest use case today, but tokenization will dwarf anything that comes out with regard to the future. It's estimated that by 2030, 15 trillion of assets will be digitalized. So I'm talking about everything that currently today, whether it be equities, commodities, real life, are all going to be on the blockchain, or a large portion of it. Now, regulation, one of the things that we key on in Turkey, in the market in Turkey in specific, where regulation was supposed to come into play already a while back ago. Now it's estimated to come into play either in Q4 or Q1 of this year. Obviously, we're all hopeful of that. We work together with the regulators in many different jurisdictions in order to support their requirements. So whether it be in Turkey, the requirement to have all of the private keys within the country itself, or whether it be to use a hardware-based orientation wallet or a cloud-based environment. These are all things that we've worked with the regulators, whether it be in the US, SEC and OCC, which they're far behind as far as that's concerned, BaFin, FINMA, UAE, Thailand, and of course Turkey. Now, one of the biggest things when it comes to trusting an infrastructure and building an infrastructure, you need to understand what it is that you're getting from it. You need to have a proper governance and policy engine, and you need to have a proper deployment. And these are all things that you need to also respond to, because the regulators change their minds. What we've come across is, quite often a regulator will say, okay, MPC is okay to go live with, which is a warm wallet, and then before you go live, they necessarily say, no, we're not trusting that, and we need to make a change. And one of the unique aspects of what we do is, again, we have a flexible deployment model, a flexible infrastructure, and really the ability to work with any different regulatory requirements that come up in the space. Now, choosing a tech stack is very important, and I'm not going to talk deep tech over here. We'll try to keep it more of a high level. But in the market today, there are what is known as warm wallets. Obviously, a basic hot wallet is not something secure. A warm wallet is an internet-connected computer that's used for high-frequency transactions. Now, a warm wallet, by definition, is connected to the internet. And no matter what anybody tells you, if it's connected to the internet, there's an attack vector. no matter how you do it. So there's ways of mitigating risk when it comes to warm wallets, but there is no way of eliminating risk. Now, with that said, there are use cases where warm wallet comes into play. Custody and storage of large amounts of assets is not one of them. Things like minting of tokens or deployment of smart contracts, not a warm wallet capability. Now, from our experience, it basically costs $1 million to compromise a single internet-connected computer. A warm standard MPC solution has 3 internet-connected computers. Again, it's all about ROI. If you spend enough money, you can actually hack into the device. Now, the solutions in the market that call themselves cold wallets, all right, the intention here is it should be of the highest level of security. There should be no attack vectors whatsoever, because the fact is, that's the idea of cold, and you should be storing large amounts of value. The problem is, since blockchain, when you're doing a transaction, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about a token, a crypto asset, or any other asset, it requires what's called bidirectional communication. Just to give you a simplistic overview of this, as a traditional check, okay, if you take your checkbook out of your wallet, you can put my name on it, sign the check, you can send me money. It's a very passive type of setup. Blockchain doesn't work that way. Blockchain requires, in every transaction, a certain piece of mandatory data that you need to put into your transaction structure. And it's something that's constantly updating on the blockchain. And it depends on the blockchain, but they all have the mandatory data. And that's why all the solutions in the market that call themselves cold today, where we're talking about, I'll skip over the B2C product in a second, things like cloud-based HSM devices, which are, HSMs are very secure, but not when it comes to the blockchain space. You have air-gapped solutions that use camera QR codes or thumb drives or SD cards. At the point of withdrawal or deposit, you need to get that mandatory data in. And that's exactly where all the solutions fall down from a cybersecurity perspective. Because at that point, they become open, no different than a warm wallet is concerned. And just to give you a bit of history, we actually started GK8 where we hacked into one of the most common B2C products still today, which I'm not going to mention the name, it doesn't really matter which one, but it's a disk on key solution that call themselves cold that people, I'm sure in this room, are also storing value on. And again, at the point of withdrawal or deposit, you need to connect via your cable to your computer, and that's exactly where we're able to compromise it. And all the solutions in the market today, sadly, all have that same risk factor. So what do we do differently? Okay? GK8, we're not a hardware company. Well, this looks like the James Bond looking suitcase or the football, depending on where you are in the country. Our innovations at the cryptographic layer. What's unique about this device, it provides 100% cybersecurity, meaning it's not about mitigation of risk. At no point ever is it ever receiving any digital input. There's no wireless, no Bluetooth, no camera, no QR, nothing whatsoever. So it's not a matter of, it could be anyone in the market. There's no way of attacking this device from a internet-connected environment because it has no digital input. And therefore, for custody operations, we're signing the transaction within this device, sending it unidirectionally to a proxy computer to broadcast this transaction. And this is used for custody. It's used for things that require the highest level of security. Smart contract issuance, minting and burning of tokens, okay? If you can imagine, if you have a stablecoin project, you can't afford any level of risk. And it's not about the monetary risk, it's about the reputational risk as well. You need to have the highest level of security. That's why we also were able to obtain the largest insurance available in the space today. And that's up to $1 billion of insurance per cold vault per customer. And that's extremely unique in the space. To give you an idea, most of the insurance policies are pooled insurance policies. But the fact is, the reason we were able to obtain this insurance is because the security layer is literally unhackable from that perspective. Now, as I mentioned, and this is our first of 7 patents that we have, is a use case where warm wallets do come into play. And that's where the second layer of our solution comes into play. Now, our solution is a granted patent where we've solved both the security level issues that exist in current MPC solutions, as well as the performance issue, okay? Because if you decentralize the keys into more locations, it's going to be far more secure. The standard MPC has 3 keys, as I showed you earlier on the slide. Therefore, you compromise 2 of 3 or 3 of 3 computers, you compromise the MPC. Our MPC can have a large number of shards of keys distributed across different cloud technologies without having affecting performance. Just to give you an idea, the standard MPC is handling 6 to 7 signatures per second, which for a standard Bitcoin and Ethereum transaction, it's fast enough. I won't tell you it's not. But the newer blockchains are getting faster, and the need for a speed is going to be evident. We were recently tested with 30 shards, 30 cosigners, which is a massive amount, handling 7,500 signatures per second. It's a quantum different than what's out there in the market today. Now, the last portion of the solution, which I'm going to touch on briefly, is our last patent, which is called the cash boxes. Now, the Cold Vault, since it's an offline device, it requires it to be on premise. So the obvious way of doing a transaction is I have to have an operator sitting in front of the vault. In a large global environment, that's not always realistic, or even with COVID. And the cash box allows you to do remote cold transactions, keeping in mind there is no digital input. Now, I'm not going to go into the details now, but if somebody wants to hear a little bit more, I'm happy to talk about it later at our solution, at our booth. Now, from a deployment perspective, as I mentioned, from a regulatory perspective here in Turkey, the requirement is to have everything on-prem, and it has to be a non-multi-tenant environment. And this is exactly how we separate ourselves in the ability to do so. And we can also deploy this with various different levels of hardware as far as security as well. Now, the governance and policy layers is super important when it comes to deploying a solution. Your ability to set policies based on whether it be a token, a blockchain, a client, whether you work with segregated accounts or omnibus accounts. There are a lot of nuances, and the ability to set quorums of approvers to provide the level of security that a bank or a financial institution requires is super important. And this governance layer that we have is flexible, where a small DeFi desk or a staking fund can use our solution, as well as the tier 1 and tier 2 banks. So it's a wide range, but the flexibility exists when it comes to all of them. As mentioned, we work very hard with the insurers to get the largest insurance available in the market today with the lowest premiums. Now, the reason we can do that is, again, we've proven to the insurer, and we constantly do this, that there's no risk factor with regard to the assets that are being stored in our solution, because there is no method of hacking into it. Now, just in summary over here, as I said, we have everything from deployment to insurance to, from a security perspective, the highest level of security, as well as the usability aspect. Probably the widest coin coverage in the market, so we can support literally any use case that comes in, as well as when it comes to the tokenization world, which is a hot area right now with regard to both token issuance as well as existing smart contract support for minting, burning, and other aspects like that. And of course, the last thing is the reporting side of things, where we have both a unique proposition with one of the big four, which provide attestation of account balances for people that are working in the blockchain space, which is very important for regulated entities, as well as a full audit on any action that takes place on the system. So there are no aspects that aren't really covered when it comes to an infrastructure and a technology stack that GK8 offers. Thank you very much.